Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? Okay, listen up to everyone who has Berkey. Berkey water purifiers have been one of the most popular products for many, many years. I have one myself. I love it. And their production has now been halted by the EPA. It is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life, but I'll go on. California government authorities, because leave it to them, have sought for years to curtail Berkey sales, and those government authorities have offered their justifications, while many others have seen very different motives. The latest move is that the US EPA has now declared that Berkey water purifiers are a pesticide. Yeah, this is serious. I'm being dead serious with you. And I don't even know. I try not to take things that come out of their mouths seriously, but this is what's actually going on. So therefore, under their regulatory authority, Berkey is currently under government order to cease production. So if you have a Berkey and you were needing to get filters, guess what? Not anymore. As a result, all distributors are unable to order any more stainless systems, and the remaining stocks are very, very low. You can still order like replacement elements for all of your systems, and you can still order Berkey light systems, but they expect both replacement elements and Berkey light stocks to run out very, very soon. Berkey has made it very clear that the regulations that the government is attempting to put in place would mean the end of Berkey. Now, Berkey is now suing the EPA in federal court in an effort to overturn their policy. And it's unknown when a ruling will be made, and if the EPA decision is allowed to stand or not. Then they expect any remaining Berkey stocks to sell out in days, if not hours. So if you want to ensure your personal supply of Berkey systems and replacement elements, like your filters and whatnot, my advice, do it now. All right, I know their filters are expensive and stuff like that, but, come on, clean water is clean water, you know what I mean? Especially what's in water, I don't even have to tell you, okay? So I have a attachment that was sent to me, and I'll read it to you, okay? And this is dated as of August 9th, 2023. New Millennium Concepts Limited and the James B. Shepherd Trust, the brand owner of Berkey Water Systems, filed a lawsuit against the EPA this week, seeking to stop its unjustified treatment and perceived persecution of Berkey water filters based on the EPA's decision this year to treat Berkey water filters as though they are pesticides rather than water filters. For more than a quarter of a century, Berkey has provided water filters to the public, providing an effective, economical means of removing harmful contaminants from freshwater sources for consumers to have clean water at home or on the go. In fact, an entire generation has grown up with Berkey filter in their kitchen. If the EPA wants to regulate gravity-fed mechanical water filters, it has a process that has to be followed at the very least. Berkey filters have never caused any harm to anyone, and the removal of Berkey filters from the market means that Berkey owners will not be able to replace the filters in their system, and therefore the demand will be met with untested, knock-off, and counterfeit filters, that claim to be replacements that provide the same benefits when in fact they do not. The EPA's decision to persecute the market leader may well cause actual damage to the American people who the EPA is supposed to be protecting. For example, on July 11, 2023, CBS recommended travel Berkey system both in print and in the broadcast news, based upon the Environmental Working Group's testing that found that travel Berkey systems remove toxic PFAs to below detectable limits. And on June 7, 2023, popular consumer health advocate Mike Adams recommended big Berkey systems, reporting that they removed an impressive 99.99% of radioactive cesium-137. However, EPA Region 8 is actively working to make these systems unavailable to the American people. Berkey's filters have never caused harm to anyone, and the EPA's arbitrary and arguably irrational new interpretation of its regulations would have a huge impact, directly threatening not only jobs of 500 plus employees globally, lost sales for Berkey distributors and retailers around the world, some of which only sell Berkey products, effectively putting them out of business, and also the well-being of the American people, the very consumers who the EPA is supposed to protect. Moreover, it would have the same impact on other outdoor water filter manufacturers, potentially putting them out of business as well. The EPA has been regulating pesticides since 1947, most through the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. FIFRA is exactly what it looks like. A law that seeks to regulate chemical pesticides primarily for agricultural purposes. But the law distinguishes between actual pesticides, substances or mixtures of substances intended for preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pests, and treating devices which use registered pesticides in their construction, like seeds that are sold after being treated with a registered pesticide. The EPA has never sought to force registration of mechanical type water filters as pesticides until last year, when the EPA decided to start regulating Berkey's water filters without warning after more than 2 decades of undisputably safe manufacture and sale. Though there was no notice or opportunity to discuss that issue, Berkey and its manufacturing arms agreed to request from the EPA for Berkey filtration products to be identified as treated devices, which is a different classification than a pesticide or a pesticide device, because they incorporate silver, a registered pesticide, in their filter media, a common additive in water filters, which does not leach into the water. That protects the filter from a biological growth through a common problem with water filters. Berkey has not hidden from the EPA and has tried to comply with applicable laws and regulations regarding the manufacture and distribution of Berkey products. First, Berkey products were designed by the EPA as treated devices, and the EPA has reinterpreted their rules and arbitrarily reclassified Berkey filters as a pesticide, issuing orders without due process, preventing Berkey filters from being sold in some parts of the country by Select without notice or a shred of legal support. Berkey filters are not substances or mixtures of substances intended for preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pests, as FIFRA defines pesticides. Rather, they mechanically remove contaminants through a tortuous maze of micropores, absorptions, and ionic absorption. A problem arises when a water filter system is classified as a registered pesticide because a whole host of time-consuming regulations and requirements go into play, including erroneous labeling requirements that must be placed upon all packaging. Basically, the regulations that require labels to go onto the packaging assert that the product is a hazardous material. Other required labels include hazard precautionary statements, environmental hazard statements, directions for use and storage, disposal statements, and mandatory statements like that ensure the proper use of the pesticide and to prevent the occurrence of reasonable adverse effects on the environment, which is defined in FIFRA, etc. Therefore, Berkey would be required to label its water filters with pesticide language that could be very disconcerting and frightening to its customers, especially when similar and competing products are not being held to the same standard or requirements. Moreover, pesticide registration is an expensive process that can take years to get EPA approval, and in the meantime, Berkey products would not be available to the American public. As an administrative body, the EPA does not make actual law. Its authority is limited to creating rules which enforce laws that are passed by the United States Congress. As it is making rules, it is obligated to give notice of new rules and take input from those who will be impacted, which in our case did not occur. In part, the EPA is excusing its new regulations that now classify Berkey filters as a pesticide on a notice issued in 2007 regarding electrode-equipped ion-generating devices, asserting that the use of silver in Berkey filters makes the filters into ion-generating devices, even though the 2007 notice specifically accepts that interruption. NMCL and the family-owned trust that owns Berkey's intellectual property and manufacturing authority has employed NORAD, and that's NORRED, law to sue in federal court and seeks an injunction to force the EPA to follow its rule-making process before enforcing new regulations. So, if you own a Berkey, like I do, and like a lot of us in this community do, please, I implore you to try and stock up on your water filters. And if you have to replace any parts of your Berkey, like your seals, your spouts, things like that, okay? I know that that was a long, thing that I read to you, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew exactly what Berkey said and that nothing was taken out of context, and that there was no fear-mongering or anything else like I know some other people do, okay? But this is serious, all right? And I wanted you guys to know exactly what's going on, okay? So stock up on those products if you possibly can, okay? All right, guys, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one. You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fear less. Ciao.